Good evening and happy Thursday to each and every one of you. Good evening and happy Thursday to each and every one of you. We will be getting started at the top of the 6 o'clock hour. We will be getting started right at 6 o'clock. So as you are coming in, I ask that you simply comment and say what city and state you're watching from. And then I want you to tag someone or share this video, because we will be sharing part 7 of the teaching purpose of the pivot. So as you're coming into the virtual classroom, I ask that you simply type in the city and state that you're watching from and share this video. Also, I want you to get out your pen and paper. I want you to be able to take some notes, or get out your phone or your tablet so you can take some notes, so you'll be able to revisit some things when this is over. So again, as you are coming in, I ask that you simply type your city and state and let us know where you're watching from. Good evening, Coach. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you. Good evening, Coach. So happy to have you. Long Beach, California is in the house as you are coming in. Mansfield, Texas. All right, Lily, welcome. As you're coming in, tag somebody in the video, share it with someone, get your pens and papers ready. We are going to share some good information on tonight. We are going to be talking about point 7 in the purpose of the pivot. So as you are coming in, comment your city and state, and we will be starting at 6 o'clock. Is there anyone willing to be my scribe tonight? Anyone willing to type in some keynotes in the chat for me? Let me know. If you're willing to type in some notes in the chat, just let me know so I'll know, so I can shout you out. All right. Hey, family. Baton Rouge, Louisiana is in the house. We got Louisiana, Texas, and California. We will be getting started at 6 o'clock at the top of the hour. I'm excited to share this information with you all tonight. And I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of studying, and putting in some serious work as we create this content. So I hope you all are being blessed by it, inspired by it. I hope you all are applying it to your lives. All right, Louisiana is in the house. All right. Again, share this video, tag somebody. All right, it's 6 o'clock and we are going to go ahead and get started. It is now time to get started. So good evening, and let me say thank you to each of you who have jumped in on this live with me this evening. I also want to thank those of you who will be watching the replay. And if you're catching it on the replay, just type replay in the comments. I'm not sure if this is your first time tuning in or if you are returning for another pivot conversation. This may sound a little redundant to those of you who have been tuned in, but for the sake of the newcomers, I want to share that I've been teaching on the word pivot since last month. And we will continue that throughout this month, or at least until we finish unpacking the pivot. And actually, I have only one more segment to teach on this pivot. So we have covered a lot of information in the previous 6 segments of the pivot conversation, and I want to dive in quickly. But before I do that, let me give you a brief explanation of the pivot. And again, if this is your first time tuning in, you can actually check the previous 6 segments on this Facebook page, or you can go to my YouTube channel, The Change Navigator, and you can see all of them on my YouTube channel. Hey, Donna. Hey, Ronald. Louisiana is in the house. All right. We've been talking about the word pivot, and I'm sure you are very familiar with the word, as it has been a popular buzzword during this pandemic. It has been used synonymously in reference to adapting to the current environment that we're living in, like working from home, or changing careers, or figuring out a way to do more but with less, and even opening a new business or creating a new stream of income. Some people have been using the word as motivation. Others have been using the word as a measuring stick and making comparisons. Hey, Deborah, Opelousas is in the house. And some have been using it, what I call bully culture. I'm sure you have heard of the word cancel culture, but I want to introduce a different thought, the bully culture. And I'm sure you've seen the memes. They go something like this: if you come out of this pandemic the same way you went in, you wasted time. If you don't have a new skill, a new business, you have wasted your time. I call that bullying and comparing. I'm not sure people understand how to properly motivate others. And maybe that tactic works for some people, but that's not the method that I subscribe to. Anyway, regardless of how people have been using the word pivot, the meaning is still the same. In its simplest terms, and for the purpose of what I'm discussing, according to dictionary.com, pivot means to turn on. The other definition it provides as it relates to basketball is to keep one foot in place while holding the ball and moving the other foot one step in any direction. So I remember when I started learning how to play basketball in middle school and about the foundations of the game. My coach at the time was the late Mrs. Frances Leday, who is a Grambling State University alum. She taught us to pivot, especially when we were trapped in the corner or facing a turnover. So we understand what it means to pivot. We understand that it simply means to turn or to reposition. Can we agree on that? It means to turn or to reposition. But what is the purpose of the pivot? What is the purpose of the turn? What is the purpose of the repositioning? So far, I've shared 6 purposes of the pivot, and tonight I'm going to give you the 7th purpose. So let's recap the 6 previous purposes. Number 1, the purpose of the pivot is to give you space, to give you extra space, to think and to create. Number 2, the purpose of the pivot is to give you an alternative. Anytime a problem presents itself, the solution is also present. Number 3, the purpose of the pivot is to see something differently. Number 4, the purpose of the pivot is to get you out of trouble. Number 5, the purpose of the pivot is to give you a little breathing room before making a bad or impulsive decision. And number 6, the purpose of the pivot is to give you extra time. So these are the 6 topics we've already discussed, and tonight we are going to number 7. So number 7, the purpose of the pivot is to become open if you are trapped. The purpose of the pivot is to become open if you are trapped. And let me remind you that I formulated these references as it relates to learning how to play basketball, but they can be applied to real life, particularly to making changes in your life. Someone told me yesterday after she watched the segment from Tuesday, she said she considered my teaching equivalent to that of a parable. And I thought that was a huge compliment. But so the purpose of this teaching is to help you pivot and navigate through changes in your life, whatever that change may be. It may be as simple as implementing something new into your daily regimen, or something as complex as a career change, or starting a new business. Something as simple as adding an additional challenge to your workout regimen, or something as complex as navigating through a relationship change. Something as simple as being intentional about drinking more water, to something as complex as setting a financial goal and sticking to it. Change is inevitable. Change will happen, whether it's forced, whether it's unexpected, or whether you initiate it. I'm here as the change navigator, as your pivot partner, to help you work through your fears, to help you simplify what seems to be complex as it relates to change, and to help you to begin to live a life of joy and fulfillment once you implement necessary changes. Hey, Stanley, Houston, Texas is in the house. So let's dig deeper into number 7. The purpose of the pivot is to become open if you are trapped. Remember, the pivot is to turn or to reposition. So in basketball, it refers more to being physically trapped, physically stuck. But for the sake of this teaching tonight, for the sake of this life application, I want to focus on becoming open in your mind if you are trapped by circumstances, trapped by fears, and trapped by your own thoughts, okay? If you are trapped by circumstances, by fears, or by your own thoughts. As many of you know, I share knowledge I gained through reading certain different books, and I'm currently reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I know I'm a little late on this one, but the timing is perfect. So I read a statement, and that's what I want to unpack tonight. The statement, the author said, the way we see the problem is the problem. Let me say that again. The way we see the problem is the problem. You can write that down. The way we see the problem is the problem. So now I want to talk about this. Therefore, when you are trapped by circumstances, when you are trapped by fears and trapped by your own thoughts, it is based on your perception of what is going on around you. California's in the house. Hey, Claude. So it's based on your perception of what's going on around you. So as challenging as it may be, there comes a time when you will have to remove yourself, get out of your head, get out of your feelings, and try to look at circumstances from a different perspective. Again, it's challenging, but it's doable. Question is, are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to put in the work and be uncomfortable for a little while? It would benefit you to have someone or more than one person in the same circumstance who is unbiased to you, who can identify the facts about the situation, because the facts don't change. Our perception changes, but the facts don't change. So identify the facts and then pick their brain on the situation. You may find that they may see something differently. More than likely, they might have a different perspective. I'm not saying apply their perspective. I'm saying be open to understanding it from a different viewpoint. Remember, we're trying to pivot, we're trying to turn, we're trying to reposition. And when we are lodged into a situation or circumstance, when we find ourselves so involved in it, we lose our ability to be objective. When we are lodged in a thing, when we are connected to it, we lose our ability to be objective. So what's another way to become open if you are trapped? Another way to become open if you are trapped is to listen to your self-talk. Identify the truths you tell yourself versus the lies. Guess what? Yes, we lie to ourselves, people. And sometimes we lie to make ourselves feel good. We know the saying, the truth hurts. And we also know the scripture, the truth makes you free. So if it hurts while making you free, that should be a pain you should be willing to endure. So you have to identify your faulty thinking about the situation. Identify the excuses you give yourself about the situation. In order to reap the benefit of the pivot, the benefit of the turn or the repositioning, you have to be willing to be honest with yourself. Many of us have been and we are trapped by fears. Fear of failure. A fear of failure keeps you from moving, period. Fear of failure keeps you from moving, period. But how do you pivot from that? How do you turn? How do you reposition yourself when you are trapped by a fear of failure? I can give several things or several thoughts I incorporated to get over this fear. Because at one point I did have a fear of failure, okay? I'm not saying that the way I thought or the way I did things was the end all, but I am suggesting that it's a start and it can help. So fear of failure. What did I do? What did I tell myself? I began to tell myself that failure is not trying at all. Failure is hoarding your thoughts and ideas and creativity and not releasing it to the world. Failure is not the worst thing that can happen. Even if you encounter failure, you learned a lesson. You learn a lesson. So I then began to incorporate the thought process of the what if factor. What if this is bigger than I imagined? What if people actually need what I implement, what I do? What if it's wildly successful? What if someone is waiting on my ingenuity? So that's how I got rid of my fear of failure. I had to do a lot of self-talk. I had to just encourage my own self, all right? And realize that failure was not even trying. And failure is not, fear of failure is, it just keeps you from moving. So then, how do you pivot from the fear of the opinion of others? Because through my conversations, I'm realizing that many people are trapped by the fear of the opinion of others. And I was there at one point in my life. Hello, Claudia. I was there at one point in my life, and here are some thoughts and questions I began to ponder in order to move forward. Because again, that fear will keep you stuck. It will keep you in one place. And we're trying to pivot. We're trying to reposition ourselves, okay? So from the opinion of others, let me say this. When you get over this, the opinion of others, that's probably the best freedom you'll ever experience in your life. See, the thing that I began to do, I began to tell myself, people will have an opinion if you do something. People will have an opinion if you do nothing. So you might as well do something. The people who have an opinion probably aren't that busy making major moves, right? And then I had to ask myself this question. Do the people even matter to you? Will their opinions stop doors from opening for you? Why are you allowing their opinion to hinder you? Do you like being in prison? Because living your life as it relates to the opinions of others is like being in jail. Outwardly, you look free, but you know you are walking around with shackles on your hands, on your feet, and you're operating from behind a jail cell. There are several billions of people in this world. So why does the opinion of one or two carry so much weight? These are the mental conversations I had to have with myself. Once I answered these questions, I pivoted to a different mindset. I repositioned myself. And the truth is, I don't like people controlling me. So I could not allow people's opinions to control me. And I definitely wasn't going to allow something as invisible as an opinion to control my life. Again, the purpose of the pivot is for you to become open if you are trapped. And tonight we are referring to being trapped in your mind by circumstances, by fears, and by your own thoughts. So now here comes the homework assignment. Number one, question one. You can write this down. You can think about it. You can type it to yourself. Number one, what's the one thing you want to do, but you're afraid to do it? Number two, what is contributing to that fear? What is contributing to that fear? And number three, identify things you can do or say to yourself to pivot when you are faced with that fear again. So you're going to be proactive, right? You're going to be proactive. You're going to identify some things you can say or do when that fear presents itself again, because it's going to present itself again. All right. So that's it for my teaching tonight. Are there any questions or comments? Thanks, Grace. I appreciate your feedback. Are there any questions or comments for me? If you enjoyed this teaching, give me a thumbs up, give me a heart, say something in the comments, say something in the chat. Any questions or comments? All right, I see some hearts. Okay, thank you all. Looks like you all are enjoying. And again, I only have one more segment of this teaching, and I may do a bonus one. It just depends, but for sure, one more. That'll be on Tuesday. Thanks for the hearts, people. Thanks, Lily, Ingrid, Ronald, Grace, Kaylee. Thank you all. So if you don't have any questions you want me to answer, thanks, Deborah. Okay, Ingrid, you have to rewatch. If you don't have any questions you want to type in the comments, if you want to ask me something one-on-one, you can email me at thechangenavigator@gmail.com. If you haven't already, I have a separate Facebook page, the Change Navigator, so you can follow that page because I want to eventually transition to doing the videos from that page. And I will be posting more content on that page, and I want you to stay connected. You can follow me on IG at _change_navigator. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Change Navigator. I want you to share this content with people, especially if you know somebody who is constantly dealing with the fear of failure or the fear of the opinion of others. All right. Share this content with them. Tell them it's some stuff in here that's going to really help them, to move forward and reposition and turn and hopefully live a life of freedom, live a life that they've always wanted to live. So thank you all for tuning in tonight for another segment of Pivot Conversations with the Change Navigator. And I will be back again on Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Also, I forgot to tell you, if you haven't checked out my podcast, I have a podcast on several major media outlets. So it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and different ones. So feel free to check out the podcast. I share some different content than these pivot conversations. But yeah, feel free to check out the podcast. Leave me some feedback. I'd love to hear what you think and what you're saying. Again, I will be back on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you all for tuning in. God bless.